Hi, and welcome to the Writing Biz. Just one second. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I'm sorry. We're having a technical problem. Jeff, are you having a lot of feedback?
No, I'm not getting any.
It's really weird. Okay. Welcome to the Writing Biz. This is where we take care of the business of writing. This week, we bring you part 4 of our social media series. My guest today is Jeff C. of Manly Pinterest Tips. I was one of the OGs of the original Manly Pinterest Tips show, and I'm thrilled that it's back. If you haven't checked it out, put it on your must-do list. Jeff, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what inspired you to start Manly Pinterest Tips?
Yeah, sure. Well, I've been in the internet space for a long time. I've been creating websites. I have a company that I've been doing for 12 years, and a couple years ago I decided, well, I probably ought to start doing what I'm telling my clients to do. So I started hitting social media pretty hard, and then what I went and how Manly Pinterest Tips started is I was getting on Google Plus and I was writing things, and I went ahead and wrote an article about Manly Pinterest, and the first one was I started doing Pinterest, and I shared a secret board with my daughter, and that was how we kind of communicated. It was only for us, and it was a neat little thing that we did together, and it took off. And then I wrote some more articles on being Manly Pinterest Tips because it's considered a women's network, and so that was why I decided to do to write that way, because it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, kind of fun. And then Les Dossie, who was on the show with me in the original guys. He said, Jeff, you got to do a show. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do a show. And he said, just do it. And so we did it, and it did really well. And we did 5 episodes, and we got to interview some pretty cool people. And then it kind of morphed. We decided to, go stop after 5 episodes, and then we went to, which continues today. We do about 2 episodes a month of the Manly Show, so we can talk about other things other than Pinterest. So that's still going on, and then I've relaunched the Manly Pinterest Tip Show as a weekly show and a podcast. So that's kind of the evolution of the Manly Pinterest Tips saga.
Well, I tell you, it's really interesting. You always have such good advice for everybody.
Oh, thanks.
Let me ask you a question. Let's start with a writer through the Pinterest space. When they go to create their account, what do you suggest, doing a personal or a business?
I would suggest anybody, if they're going to do any sort of business thing, if you're just going to get on Pinterest just to look at stuff and have fun and pin things, then a personal account's fine. But if you're going to do any sort of business, you need to get a business account. And it's really easy to set up. They'll even ask you if you haven't done it for a while. Let's say you have an old account that you've used, and you're like, oh, I've got all these followers, should I switch over? Yeah, it's really easy to switch over. So it makes it easy. But you get some really cool things with that. You get some rich pins, you get some analytics stuff, and it's actually part of, if you're going to use anything for business, it's part of the terms of service for Pinterest that you need to have a business account. So you don't want to ever take it away, especially if you build up thousands of followers. So I would go from the get-go and do a business Pinterest account. So
yeah, that's what I was thinking, because it just seems like a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, there's not real. It's all advantages as far as I'm concerned. There's no negative to it. So just go ahead and do it. Even if you're thinking about it, let's say you're kind of playing with the idea of writing a book or putting out an ebook. Maybe that's in your future. Go ahead and set up a business account, just so you're safe and you don't have to worry about it later. And so. That's what I would suggest.
And it just helps to build you as your brand and your audience. And start from that part. I made that mistake, is how I know.
Okay.
I did that originally with a different account, so
yeah.
I learned my lesson.
But it's not hard to switch over either. I mean, it's not a big. I don't think it's a big hassle. I mean, I had to do it too, and so they make it pretty easy for you. But yeah, if you're starting out, just go ahead and set up a business account. And I would. Unless you just know that you're not going to do it, I would set up a business account. So.
Okay. Well, that answered that, didn't it?
Well, then what you want to do as soon as you do that, let's say you have set up the business account and you're wanting to push things to your website. Make sure you verify your account, and there's a way to do that inside of the settings. That's important to tie your 2 accounts together. So That's another thing, is make sure you verify your account once you're doing the setup process. Let's say you have a website, you haven't used Pinterest. Well, create a business account, and then right after that, go verify that account so you can tie those together.
I'm glad you brought that up because that also has to do with the your pin it buttons and everything on your website, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in the green room, and I'm sure last week with Stefan you talked about it too. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. I don't think Pinterest is going anywhere, but you just never know.
Unless you own the basket.
Yeah, exactly. And so I try to think. I want to drive them always back to me, and so that's where I can capture their information and get a list going, because that's how you're going to market. That's yours. That's your baby. No one can take it from you once you have those that you can talk to those people with. So just like Pinterest or Facebook or Twitter or anything, everything I want to go back to my site. And the same thing with Pinterest. When you have a verified account and a business account, you can when I pin from my website my articles, I can see it has my little logo from my it's blanking on me, the little logo on the top of your browser of my site. It's actually in there, and it has my name, and it's bold, and so you get some advantages of doing it that way. And so when you link them together, it's just it gives you a little more pop on the page, and it's driving it back to my website. When people click on my image in Pinterest, it'll go back to that article and on my website. So that's one of the things I think that is very important. So you think you're getting echo from me, or?
I'm not sure. I've got here. Did you just mute yourself?
No, I didn't. Let me move my mic a different way if you're still getting a muting.
Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, because now I don't hear it at all.
Okay. Is it better now?
Yeah.
You want to start over? It's up to you.
Let's just start over and not change the broadcast. Just keep it live, because I'll just edit it out.
Okay, cool.
Okay. All right. So let's start at the beginning. I'm sorry, honey.
That's all right.
Okay. Give it a minute. Hi, and welcome to the Writing Biz, where we take care of the business of writing. This week we bring you part 4 of our social media series. My guest today is Jeff C. of Manly Pinterest Tips. Manly Pinterest Tips was, some of you may know, was a show that was on several months ago, and Jeff has brought it back and restarted it, which is awesome because it was one of my favorite shows. I always got so much information off this show, and his guests were always spectacular. So I'm thrilled to see that it's back. He also is turning it into a podcast now, so that's really awesome. So, Jeff, can you tell us a bit about yourself and what got you started with the Manly Pinterest Tips? Why did you all of a sudden decide to throw all that testosterone out to us?
Well, the funny thing was, I actually I've been in the internet space for 12 years, and I was creating websites, and I finally decided I better do some social because I'm telling my clients to do it, and I haven't done it yet, so I needed to start. So I hit social pretty hard a couple years ago, and I started on Google Plus, and I watched a hangout with Peg and Stefan, and they were talking about how Pinterest and Google Plus work so well together, and that intrigued me. And I had heard about Pinterest, and I set up an account because I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts is Michael Stelzner's Social Media Examiner. He does that podcast every week, and he had Cynthia Sanchez on there and talking about Pinterest. I'm like, that's interesting, and so it all kind of came together, and I started kind of playing with it, and I wrote it was actually not even a blog post, it was just a long post on Google Plus about setting up secret boards. I called it Manly Pinterest Tip number 1, and it really took off, and people liked it, and I was talking about how I could communicate with my daughter using a secret board that only her and I saw, and it was our special thing, and people really liked that article. And then a friend of mine, Les Dossie, said, hey, you need to do a show. And I'm like, I don't want to do a show. And he said, no, I'll do one. And so he kind of dragged me kicking and screaming to do a show, and we did it, and we had a blast. I had 4 other guys on it, and that's the cool thing. If you ever start a show, do a show with 4 guys who know more than you and have a bigger following, because it really helped. It really helped. And so, so it took off, and we had a great time, and we did 5 episodes. We interviewed people, and we got Cynthia on our last episode, and she was awesome. And so we did that, and then we took a break, and we started a show called The Manly Show, which is still going on. We do 2 shows a month, and we've interviewed people, and we wanted to talk things more than Pinterest. And we try to do a kind of a business show, and then we do a fun show. We did a show where we cooked outside on our grills, and but we got to interview Guy Kawasaki, and some really cool things have happened, and so that's continuing to go on. But I just relaunched the Manly Pinterest Tip Show as a podcast and weekly show because there's so much interest in Pinterest. Pinterest is one of the fastest growing social media networks for a lot of people. It's one of their biggest drivers of traffic, especially bloggers.
Yep.
And for me, it's a huge driver of traffic to my site. And it has one of the longest shelf life of any social media network out there. Twitter, I think, is like 8 minutes. Facebook's about a little longer than that. I'm still getting pins from stuff I pinned months and months ago. And that means traffic is still coming back to my site from months and months ago that I put up there. So it's that's one of the biggest reasons I recommend to my clients to use Pinterest, is because of the cool traffic driving. So that's kind of everything, kind of jumbled together and wrapped up of why I like
Another thing with Pinterest, too, is that they have, it's over 50% of the people on Pinterest buy on Pinterest.
Yeah.
Which there's no other social media that can say that. It's definitely the place. If you're trying to sell something, it's definitely the space to be in, for sure. Which is great for books.
Yeah, and if you want to get some really good stats on Pinterest, a lady named Anna Bennett, she does white glove marketing. She's got some great stats right on her site about Pinterest, and I think for last Black Friday, it drove like a huge amount of traffic for people. The other thing is people spend more on Pinterest, and they also have a higher income, and so it's the market that you want. Especially if you're selling anything, to me, you need to be on Pinterest. It's just huge. So. And
it's just growing, and it's become. I love the fact that you can message now within Pinterest.
Right.
Which you probably know this, but a lot of people might not know this. It makes it much easier to communicate between different accounts too. So I have like my business account, I have the Writing Biz account, and I can send things in between without having to go in and out and back and forth and all the nonsense I was doing before. So that makes it very, very nice.
And the thing with Pinterest now, with the messaging thing, you both have to be following each other already, but it's huge for collaboration. Let's say you're an author and you have your friends or your marketing team or whatever, and you're working on your cover of your book. Well, you can make that a pin and share it back and forth and make changes and then talk about it and mess each other all inside of Pinterest. And so that was one of the biggest things that people were really they didn't like about Pinterest, was that it was not very social. There was comments, but half the time the comments would jack up when you mention somebody. They'd do the wrong person. And so this is, I think, a really big step in that direction of making it more social. And it's going to be really big for collaboration, I believe.
I agree with you, too, because I use it with a couple of friends of mine going back and forth, and also my daughter to collaborate. And the other thing I told you in the green room, and I know I've said it before in the show, is that I use it for research. And not just I keep all the research there once I'm done with something in my secret boards, because as that I do the other content that I've created, I'll use bits and pieces of that as resources or graphics or whatever I need to get the word out about what I'm doing. It's really, really an incredibly helpful tool. And how hard is it? You click a couple of buttons and boom, you've got it.
Right.
I love it. Absolutely love it. You mentioned the secret boards, now group boards.
Right.
So I know that a lot of people have trouble understanding the group boards. So if you could just give us a quick little overview of how the group boards work.
Sure. Yeah. Group boards are just people who have kind of banded together to either talk about a subject. I'm a member of group boards. Some of them I think are open, and some of them are invite only. Like I'm on a bacon board. I'm a group board about bacon.
I love bacon.
Yeah, it's huge. So. But there's also, like, for me, there's social media marketing, there's infographic boards, and the thing is you can get a lot of exposure pinning to those boards. And I would think, especially for authors, you could even, band together with some of the other people who you're working with and have those group boards. It brings pins up in front of some people that you really need to be. One of the things that I suggest to clients is try to find some and join some of those boards when you first get started. And it's being community. It's you're repinning their stuff. Don't just push your stuff in there all the time. It's a community. And you want to be social in there. And so I'm on quite a few group boards, and it's even really neat to create them for yourself. So one of my actually most popular boards is I created a group board called Google Hangouts Worth Watching. Google Plus Hangouts Worth Watching.
Oh,
and,
cool.
Yeah, and so I have, I'll invite you to it. Is people who have Hangout shows can pin there, and it's almost becoming a kind of a Reader's Digest where people want to come and find something good to watch from Google Hangouts. There's that group board, and so it gives me good exposure and a benefit, and also it gives this community a place where people can do that and see that, because I have a nice following there, that they're getting their content shared. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, that's great, because I keep on my Good Inklings board, I keep a lot of people's Hangouts. I have boards for them, and that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I like that idea. And I was just thinking that group board, if you were a small publisher and you had all your authors in that group board, you could all help push each other's content out, and it would just be such a nice intuitive way to do it. Instead of having to go to all your different media accounts, you could go to one place, and particularly if you use a social media sharing tool like Hootsuite or something, you could go to one place and move that out pretty easily without having to spend a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, I mean, they're really, and I get a lot of great information from the group boards I've joined, because they do come in your stream, those authors, right. those people pin, and so there's some really good stuff that comes through there, because people are very specific, and that's one of the things is they always try to pin good stuff to group boards, because there's kind of a, you want to pin your best stuff on your group boards because you want to look good. And that's one of the biggest things people don't do when they first get started, is they either don't pin stuff there, or they dump all their stuff all at once and don't reshare. So remember, Pinterest is all about the repins, and so repin other people's stuff, and it should work out for you.
I absolutely agree with you, and I do a lot of this show's research on Pinterest. It's just a quick, easy way to do it, and I have such a broad range of boards between my two accounts that I can usually find what I'm looking for, and it's easy to link to and everything. And then also, like, adding graphics into the feed, the comment stream. It's just a couple of quick clicks of a button.
Yeah.
Now let me ask, when somebody follows your board, how do you respond to them? Do you respond, or do you just kind of make sure that you share some things there so that they know that you're paying attention? What do you do?
Well, for me, when I first got started on Pinterest, when somebody would pin my pin, not a repin of others, but something of my content that I put up there, I would usually go thank them. Now it's getting so I would almost have to hire. I mean, it's getting unmanageable, and I think people understand that. Now I'll go if I notice a lot of somebody is continually, I notice they're sharing my stuff. I mean, I made some relationships with people, and I started seeing their content because of they've been repinning my stuff, and so that got my attention, and so I started, hey, thanks, Chad. Chad was one of them who started doing that, and so I think if you first get started, it's a good practice to thank as many people as you can, especially if they're like an influencer, like an Eileen Smith, pin something of yours, say, hey, thanks, Eileen. And it's just like Facebook or Google Plus. You can @mention somebody. For Pinterest, you use the @ symbol, and you got to be careful because sometimes it grabs the wrong name, and it's a pain in the rear.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you @mention them, and they get a notification, and so it's the same thing you would do on Pinterest, on Facebook or Google Plus, and that does call them in, and that's another thing. A little kind of tip is if you're repinning something off somebody's website, it's also nice to @mention them too. So if I pin something from you, I would. I'd write something in the description and from @Laura B. Williams. So
on the descriptions, how involved? Just give me. Let's say you are something manly, putting up a picture of a Harley Davidson motorcycle that is some classic, whatever. Right. How would you do the description for that? I mean, not just I mean, of course, you put the Harley Davidson a year and stuff, but what would you add of yourself in there?
Well, let's say it's a blog article too. You want your blog article title, and then your description. It used to be a lot of people would try to stuff keywords in their description, and you don't really do that anymore. I usually recommend to clients is about, probably 200 characters to 250 characters. I think you have up to 500 characters on your descriptions, and I think that's a little bit too much. So I try to make the description as natural with as much keywords as I can. I mean, I want it to be natural. I want it to look natural because, people are skimming. Why they like Pinterest is they're skimming through images, and it's the same thing with your description. You want your title to really pop at them, and then the second thing is your description to make sense and continue that, because they're skimming through it. And so that's kind of the 200 to 250, 235 somewhere is kind of where I like to have the descriptions. Another thing, just lately, and there's kind of a controversy on that. You'll hear it from both sides. It's hashtags. How many hashtags? Should you use hashtags? The stuff that I've heard lately, and I've talked to like Vincent Ng, he's great. He was on my show a couple weeks ago, and he's smart with Pinterest.
I saw that. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's very smart in Pinterest search, and he was saying it doesn't really matter anymore for Pinterest search, the search inside of Pinterest, but you can use them for, like me, I hashtag everything Manly Pinterest Tip Show, so I can find it and track it. But that's my own little hashtag. I usually don't go and put hashtag social media or hashtag, food or anything like that, because it's just kind of, people are saying that's redundant. But if you have a specific book, like your book title hashtag, like hashtag Good Inklings, that would be good for you people want to see all your stuff, they could click on that. And so that's what I would use hashtags for in the description. But make sure you have to put something in the description field if you're uploading a pin. It won't
I noticed something that particularly speaks to writers that I think that we could all be better about is when you put up a blog post or something of somebody's, don't just put the title, put by whoever it is. So let's say it's Frances Caballo. It says, 10 ways to use Pinterest by Frances Caballo. Because unless, which you should, this is another point, I guess, in the graphic that you use for your blog post, have on there by yourself or whoever, so that carries with it. Because if I see 10 tips on how to use Pinterest, I want to know who it's by, because a lot of times, and you know this, not all content's good content.
Right.
So if I see something from you, and I know it's from you, yes, I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to pin it, and I'm going to share it. It's just automatic.
Right.
But if it's by Susie Whatsis and I don't know who it is,
right,
or whatever, then I get a little more. First, I'll go in and read everything and make sure it's the quality that I want. It just makes it easier for everybody, I think, if you put who it's by, so that they have that kind of influence in how they're going to.
I would do that in the graphic, and also in the title, and in the description I would go ahead and you'd have the title of the book and by Stephen King or whatever, and then I would go ahead and here in the description, here's a great book by Stephen King, it helped me, but when I say Stephen King, I'd mention him in the description as well, so he would get a notification. So you kind of get the best of both worlds is what I would do.
I wonder if he's on Pinterest.
I don't know. I haven't checked.
I just found out. This is really put myself out there. This is going to embarrass me. I play World of Warcraft. I haven't played in quite a few months. But I just found out that Robin Williams played, and we weren't in the same realm. But I thought, well, that's cool, Yeah, maybe there's more geeks out there.
I used to play World of Warcraft too, and then I had to stop because I started to dream in the world, the realms, and
that is too funny.
Yeah, I was like, I can't do this. I'm getting too involved.
That's too funny. Well, that's what it does. I mean, it sucks you in like that. I'll go back every few months and play for a while, and then I stop. My grandson plays, so I like to keep up with things on him. Yeah. I just want to stop for a second, and I want to remind everybody that you're listening to the Writing Biz videocast and podcast, and if you like what you see here, please make sure you go over to thewritingbiz.com, sign up for our newsletter. That way you'll never miss an episode. And I'm very good about, not only when I do the blog post after the show, putting a lot of new resources that I don't include in the show or in the show notes, but I also do that again when I do the newsletter. So you have an enormous amount of resources. It's a good way to hold on to them and have that available to you. And you can also catch the Writing Biz on iTunes and Stitcher Radio, and that's usually goes up the Friday after the show. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the other platforms, Jeff. Facebook, a little bit about LinkedIn, Instagram video, things like that. I explained to you, and I don't mind putting it out there, I don't do a lot with Facebook. I used to when I was more in a local type business, but I have found that in my particular business, it doesn't give me a lot of traction. Now, I did honestly start rethinking this the other day because I would like to put a book out, and I think that I should start working on my audience there. So I will be doing it, but I haven't been, so I would not consider myself an expert at all. So if I'm going to offer not only our audience, but me some advice on how to get started on Facebook, that would be awesome.
Sure. The thing that I'm not a Facebook hater. I don't get much engagement from there. I'm there every day though. Still, I run a lot of stuff for clients. And the thing is you got to think about where your audience is. It's just like anything else. Where's your audience? Now, for me, because I'm starting to launch this mainly Pinterest tip kind of brand and channel, there's a lot of Pinterest users over on Facebook, and I know that. And so I'm trying to be really strategic in what I'm doing. Now, so, you know, I would, if you're an author, because you got to just admit that there's a lot of eyeballs over on Facebook. There just are. And so I would start thinking about, you know, creating a page for whatever book launch you're doing. I think that's what I think like Peg Fitzpatrick and Guy did when they did Ape. I'm sure they had a big page over there and were posting stuff. And so just start building up an audience. You don't have to have a huge audience, but, you know, it's a lot of stuff you can repurpose between platforms. And I'm really big on repurposing. If it's video, if it's you know, like audio for a podcast, repurposing I think is huge. So, and the other thing I really like about Facebook, and I use it more now than I ever do AdWords anymore, is the targeted for ads and how you can target people down. I mean, so for like me, I can target people when I do a little a video called Manly Monday, and Facebook now really lets you do video advertisements. And so I went and bought $25 worth of ads, and I saw my viewers shoot up because I can target Pinterest users, and I can have a call to action at the end of my video that actually drives them to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And so Facebook is just, and yes, they're bad and evil because they collect all the information, but that lets you advertise a lot better. So you can really drill down. And I saw some infographic the other day that was showing like something about like if you want to get 1,000 print advertisers to see your stuff, it costs like you know, $300, and if you wanted to have it off AdWords, it was like this, and then it went all the way down to Facebook ads. It was like 25 cents. So you can really can get a lot of bang for your buck for Facebook advertisings, and you can really target and track it. It's like, how do you track a billboard, you know, or a print ad? It's really hard. You know how many readers you have, but what are they doing? With Facebook, I can track how many clicks, what actions they took. I can put a tracking pixel on my website, and I can actually target ads to people who have gone to my website. It's just really awesome. And so there's some really cool stuff you can do with Facebook advertising.
I was staggering around behind in the back where the ads are yesterday because I had no idea what I was doing. But I did not realize exactly how specific you could be with that targeting. And I was very pleased to find that out because I was looking at it for a client and for what he wanted to do. Now I'm feeling excited about it.
Yeah, they just rolled out, I think last week, that you can actually do time of day with your ads. Before it was like start and stop your campaign. Well, now you can actually go in and say I want it from 7 in the morning until 11 o'clock in the afternoon. I mean, in the evening. And so you can target times a day, which is really big for some of my clients who are targeting like stay-at-home moms because they know when they have times at the beginning of the day, and they also know when they're sitting in their carpool line, which they're always checking their Facebook feed. And so you can target just that time of day, so you get the biggest bang for your buck with your ad dollars. So do
they charge extra to do it like in a prime time?
No, It's
type. I
just
mean, because when I used to do radio sales, if you're
right.
selling drive time, it's a lot more expensive
Yeah,
than
I don't think they do. I mean, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure they don't charge anymore. It depends on probably what you're going for. But I haven't played with enough. But I don't think they. When I tested it this last weekend, I didn't see any big jump.
That's interesting. I
But yeah,
like that. I like that.
and so authors, I mean, like if you're doing a nonfiction book, you could target probably people who are interested in nonfiction. I mean, I haven't drilled down to the categories they have yet, but you can also run advertising on your competitors. So let's say I'm Lowe's, I can target people who like Home Depot, and so
Really? Because I
yeah,
know that if you're using a political campaign, that you can target it. Let's say all the Democrats within a 25-mile area of a city, which is great for local politics. I
right,
mean, that's ridiculous because the budgets are small anyways.
right,
But if we're trying to get the information, that's a great way to meet people that,
yeah,
particularly if you're a grassroots campaign. That's
yeah,
really cool.
and then you can watch your statistics. And I mean, now I just noticed recently with my videos is I can actually create a custom audience of people who watch my videos to the end, which is incredible amounts of data. So I can actually target
Wow.
the people. I can actually make an entire list, an audience that I can advertise to later of people who have watched my video over 30 seconds and watched it all the way. And so it's just really cool.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm co-host on Indie Office Hours, which is a show for indie publishers and authors.
Hmm.
And on this week's show, I had Deltina Hay on there. She was discussing micromedia, which is taking all your content and purposing it in little bite-sized pieces. And what a great way to use that content by doing those video ads and things like that. That's smart.
Yeah. And I mean,
You could do a little book trailer.
oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I like it.
And the thing is you can test it out. I mean, I usually recommend try $10 a day for a week. Most people can afford that. And you can see, okay, do I need to change some stuff up? What do I need to do? And so there's some really cool things you can do. The guy to follow and to go look at, his name's John Loomer, and he's got some great information on Facebook. I usually check out his site a couple times a month.
I've seen him before. That's Loomer, right?
Yeah, he's
Okay.
really good. He's got some great stuff for trying, because Facebook's always changing their sizes, and depending on if you're doing a link or a post or whatever, there's specific sizes you need so your images don't get cropped up. And so he's got all those on his website too, which is really helpful.
Oh, cool. I'll put a link to that in the comment feed after the show for sure. That's awesome. Good resource there. Yeah, I like I said, I'm rethinking the Facebook thing, and the reason is because so many writers are using that space really well, and I don't have an excuse not to. Now, my regular business, my content writing business,
right?
It doesn't. I did try it for a long time, and I finally said, why am I doing this?
And Facebook groups are really big too. I mean, you can get in some big, awesome like author groups. I mean, I'm already a member of some Facebook groups that are really helpful. So it's almost like LinkedIn groups. I mean, that's to me is one of the. We can segue over to LinkedIn if you want, but that's one of the benefits of LinkedIn is the groups. And I'm not as active as I need to be, but LinkedIn is what Peg Fitzpatrick and Guy Kawasaki said that people really need to start focusing on as one of their.
And that's true. I'm glad you segued into that because that's true, and particularly for writers. And the reason is they allow you to publish on LinkedIn, and it's not just something that everybody can do. I know I'm a publisher and I had to apply to do it, but the engagement I get off that is ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous. I could not believe how much traffic I was getting back to my website, and then also within LinkedIn itself. It was just absolutely stunned me. I did not expect it, honestly. It was great. But yeah, I would suggest that to anybody is to get involved with LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is complicated, and the reason I said that, you want to put your absolute best efforts that you can into making sure that your profile is accurate, that where you've worked, how long, if you're still there, everything all your data is always accurate. So if you take on a new project, put it in there. it gives you a wonderful array of things that you can put into your profile. I have videos in there. Of course, you can have your resume. You can have a special blog post. There's all kinds of things you can do for it that you can't do with a lot of other profiles. So there's a lot there, but you have to really, this is what I do with the LinkedIn, is it took me several visits to get my profile right. So I started out with a main profile, and then I made a calendar thing for myself. Every week I went back in and I looked at it again. If I needed to re-edit it or add things, I did. Now, I would suggest that anyone takes every couple of months, go back and do it, because our lives change so fast. And maybe you were won an award or something that you want to add on there. You may forget if you're not going back and revisiting it. But you should take the time to get involved with LinkedIn. It's so powerful, and there's some great writer groups on there, and they're very helpful, and they will help you get your word out, and it helps build your authority, I think, faster than just about any other platform in your niche, whatever that is.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things. I mean, if Peg and Guy say to do it, then they're usually spot on and stuff, and I need to go and really clean up mine. That's my next task to do, is because I need to go in there. It's hard to, because they offered me the chance to write for them, and so I'm gonna have to
Cool.
have plan. And so anyway, because another good resource I'll try to put in the comments is Mike Alton has a great article on going and optimizing your LinkedIn profile.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah,
I should have put it in there. Yeah.
It's really good. In fact, I was meeting with a client, and I showed him that article. I sent him that article. Said, "Hey, this is we need to talk about this." And they printed it off and had notes when we met, and we sat down, and he was like, "Okay, should I do this?" I'm like, "Yeah," and so it's a really good article. So
I'm really pleased with the way LinkedIn's developing into such a broader platform. I mean, when I first started with LinkedIn, of course, it was just basically a resume site.
Right.
And now it's just that they've got some really smart people back in there.
Right.
That smart people reminded me of something. I was telling a friend of mine something you said on your Pinterest show a couple weeks ago, and which I thought was just absolutely brilliant, is that Pinterest, to increase the engagement they're getting from the male community, hired the guy who did the Axe ads. And I thought how ridiculously smart that was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, and it's not skewed so much over in Europe and other places as it is here. And Vince and I were talking. We think it's just because of kind of perception. But yeah, if you look at Pinterest new ads that they're bringing out and stuff like that, it's a lot of guys talking. It's guys looking for content, do-it-yourself stuff, and so I think it's going to increase. It may always skew more women, and that's fine, because to me it's just an opportunity for me, and it's another bucket to put your content that people love to go to Pinterest. And so back on the Pinterest train, but yeah, it's one of the best drivers of content, I think, out there.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty remarkable posts from men on there, though. And I mean, it's not always about bacon and motorcycles.
Right.
Even though I love bacon.
I go and I have a secret board that I just pin to, like you were talking about research, that I pin called article ideas, and I just pin there, and I'll just pin them, and I'll go back and use those ideas for articles. Or a lot of times, one of the best things, and we can talk about repurposing on other things, is I do a pin of the day, and I got to do that today. I haven't done it yet on Google Plus, and and so people are looking for that, and they're seeing it, and so. But I've started to cross-promote that to Facebook and also to Twitter, and that's something else you can do, is you can also tweet out your pins. You can also share them on Facebook, and that's another way to get some, like if you, for an author, if they have a book cover or something, what I would do is try to engage my community and say, here's the book cover I'm thinking about. What do you think?
Right, right.
I always like to ask questions, and then I would tweet that same pin out to my Twitter list, and I do the same thing on Facebook. And so, because I want engagement, because when I do launch the book, I want these people involved and invested in what's done. So that's what I would kind of suggest for if you're thinking about doing something author-wise on Pinterest.
You know what's interesting too, by doing the way you did, where you said that pin of the day, you're automatically almost telling them to pin it. just
Right.
by your title. That was a good move on your part. One of our loyal viewers, Pamela Barraway, was saying that she belongs to several different writing and editing groups within LinkedIn. And she was asking, what other editing and writing groups can you recommend? My writing groups would be different from yours, Pam, just because a lot of mine are content writers, which, if I'm not understanding you correctly, you don't do. But you can get into the more casual groups, but then you can also get into the real professional groups. And if you do a good balance of both, you really can get get your name out there, get known, and not only that, it's another learning opportunity. And I keep telling people that all the time. The social media platforms are not just a place to broadcast your information and get people to share your stuff. It's a great way to learn. I mean, I learned so much by reading other people's posts and getting their information, and it makes me better at what I do, and it makes me also feel I don't get a stagnant feeling. There's always something new and different, and I don't know how many times it's helped me when somebody has said something changed, and it's just like it would have taken me a while to get that information if I wasn't involved as I am. So that's something to keep in mind for sure.
One of the things for Pamela is when you're first started, you'll get into a lot of just general open groups, and that's good. But I've found that most of the really good professional groups are usually closed. And there are a reason they're closed, is because they are very specific and they have a high professional kind of thing to them. So when you first start, it might be hard to get in those. But when those opportunities do come, make sure you join those, because usually in those groups are influencers or people who you want to have see your stuff, but that usually comes after time. So don't get frustrated if you can't get into some groups or they're not letting me in or whatever. They're usually they want to see what you're doing first before they let you into those groups. So.
You just made a very good point that you could use that point across all social media platforms. It is a set of building blocks you're putting together. You're not going to get everything at once. You have to be willing to invest the time. And one of the things that is so important to writers is your audience. And if you're not making the effort to build your audience, then your book publishes and it's not selling, that's your fault, to be honest with you. You've got to. It's a different space than it used to be. Right. Unfortunately, bookstores are really struggling. People aren't going to the bookstores as much as they used to. So you have to put that effort in, and it is time consuming. But if you get organized, use the right tools, and really go to the people like Jeff, Stefan Hovnanian, Francis Caballo, people that know what they're talking about, and learn from them. Watch everything they do, read whatever they write, and learn from them, and you'll come up to speed much faster that way.
Right. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say one of the things too is when you go in and you're going to have, when you start doing social media and doing it consistently, that's another thing is consistently, is you're going to have people called super fans, that they love everything that you put out. And that is the best thing you can have, because those people are going to champion your book when it launched. They're going to share it with everybody they have. They're going to put it on all their social media channels. And so don't just be blasting out your content and not engaging with people. If somebody's there on the comment and you notice them, call them out and say, hey, I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate you sharing that post. I really appreciate, whatever. The reason I'm on this show is because Laura has been in all my shows before, and I knew her from that. I probably would, if she would have come out of the blue and I never have ever seen her before, I probably was like, I'm busy tonight, or I got something to do. Mm-hmm. But it's the same way when Stefan was on your show. He was on it because you have been engaging in his posts and in my posts, and it didn't just happen overnight. You didn't come up the day before and dump a bunch of links and, hey, great post, awesome. No, it took time and effort, and so I think that's one of the things that people have to get a mind shift around. Is it does take time. It's like any other relationship. You have the meeting and you talk, and the relationships get deeper, and that's just the way it goes. And so that's that.
One of the people is such an exemplary example of how to do that is Ryan Hanley. He
Yeah.
does a remarkable job, and the reason he does a remarkable job is because he never forgets he has an audience that not only wants to hear what he has to say, but cares about what he has to say, and he
Right.
cares back. And that's the reason when he did that crowdfunding campaign for his book, that's the reason it just went off the charts, is because of that attitude. I saw a post actually on LinkedIn today that he did on that same thing, being reciprocal,
Right.
and giving as much as you're getting, and that's a very powerful thought. And I think that anybody who really takes that to heart in their business is going to see a lot more success than just it's all about me, all about me. So
Right. The funny thing was, is I was at Podcast Movement last weekend, and Shannon Hernandez and I were sitting in there. And it was a keynote, and it was Cliff Ravenscraft. And if you follow podcasting,
yes.
Cliff is the podcast answer man, and he has been around forever. He's the godfather of podcasting. Great guy. But he was using examples of what engaging people in podcasting, and he brought up this woman, and she was talking. He had a voice clip of her talking, and the person she mentioned, and I knew who it was, and I even told Shannon, but it was Ryan Hanley, and she was talking about Ryan Hanley, and he had no idea that Cliff pulled him out. She was in part of Cliff's circle, and he heard her talking about this amazing guy who does this podcast and engages with her, and she can't wait to listen to him, and Ryan didn't even know about it. And so being engaged, and just being nice and trying to help others pays off. It just really does. So
Yeah, I started listening to Ryan's podcast long before he came onto Google Plus. I was so thrilled when he started doing HOAs. I was like, "Oh my God, this is so exciting!"
yeah,
I'm one of those fans that you were talking about.
yeah,
That that I don't have any problem saying Ryan Hanley's great. Buy this, follow him, share, whatever. No, he's awesome. He's awesome. There was a couple of other things I wanted to talk about too. Is Instagram and video. And I don't mean just Instagram, but any kind of photo sharing type site, which Pinterest is one of.
Right.
But how those can help. Instagram's a little different because it is more just pictures, so there's not a lot of text to go with it, a lot of description. I mean, it's very, very finite type space. But what do you think is, as a writer? Well, let's see, when you get your book ready, how would you use Instagram to get the word out about a new book?
It's another channel, and I'm not an Instagram expert by any means, but I've started using it. Jen Herman is the lady I use when I have a question. She's awesome. She's got some great tips. Subi Zimmerman's another. But it's just another channel. To me, Instagram's a little more personal. It's not as easy to market, and I did that on purpose. But when you can do stuff, it works really well. My thing is, it's usually people I've met on other social channels. That's just another way we engage.
Right.
So when I would do a book, I would go ahead and try to exact same thing as ask questions. Hey, here's the titles I'm thinking of, and put those on there. What do you guys think? And then see what happens. And then the same thing with your artwork. Here's this. And then when you start thinking about marketing, I'm giving away a free chapter. I would also push it out on Instagram. Hey, go here to download a free chapter and let me know what you think.
Yeah.
And
create memes out of like certain lines out of your book, quotes out of your book, or if your book has a historical base, do things that have to do with that history.
Right.
And there's all kinds of uses that you can get the word out with that. I think it's a real. I do use it. I don't use it nearly as much as I should, but I really think it's a very cool platform. You probably have heard this story, but just to kind of illustrate what I think is interesting about Instagram, and that is a pretty powerful business tool. Subi Zimmerman told a story once about her own business there in Cape Cod. She has a retail store, and she had all her sales girls, which are like high school girls in the area, they were required to carry their smartphones with them, and they would take pictures of items that were on sale, new inventory things, customers. They would interact with customers. They would just all kinds of things, and her sales went up like 40%.
Yeah.
And I just think that's such a smart way to do it. And I was thinking too, like in the entertainment industry, or restaurant industry, if you did that if you showed them, here's a picture today of our special, and take pictures with the customers, we'll give you so much off your meal if you follow us here. Da, 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 da. I mean, it's just really, really an interesting way to get the word out there and utilize Instagram. I thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
It's fast and easy.
I would tell authors or people starting, the web, this is sad, but people don't want to read. I mean, I still think it's important to have blog posts and stuff like that, but it's hard for people. Everybody wants to skim everything, and so really work on upping your image game. I mean, just up your image game, because it's the same way when you go to bookstore. The cover arts are on the wall. What draws your eye? What's going to cause somebody to pick up the book? It's the same thing that's why Instagram is successful. That's why Pinterest is successful, because it's a gateway to more content. And so that's one of the things that I told myself I would do, is I'd really up my video, because people love video too. And your idea about having a little promo for your book, I did one for Mike Alton when he had his Hootsuite book, and it worked really well. So think of all the different ways, but really, if you're not a good photographer, there's tons of free online classes on how to up your photography game. Try doing some of those. I mean, practice. I mean, I'm not the best photographer either, and I'm not the best designer either, but I practice. Practice, and try to up it, because it's going to be so much more important as the web matures, and video and images are going to be so important.
No, I absolutely agree. I don't know if you know this, my background is in graphic design, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's been a boon for graphic designers, let me tell you that. Yeah. But I couldn't agree more. That visual aspect, that's your first introduction to somebody. And I get really kind of weird when I see like bad branding or something, or a bad landing page or whatever, because that's the first time they're meeting you. It's no different than they opened the door and walked into your store, if that's what your business is. You have to think of things like that and put your best forward, so that they get a very good impression of you. And that goes for authors too. If you want to be taken seriously, you have to take yourself seriously first. Yeah, and also invest in yourself. I mean, that was the thing that I really had to change my thinking on. Here's an example. I'm getting ready to launch the Mainly Pinterest Tips podcast. Well, I've done them myself before, as some audio intros and stuff like that, but I wanted them done right. And so I paid good money to have a professional voiceover artist and do music and sound effects, and I paid even more so I would have the dry versions without the sound effects, so I could repurpose them for videos and whatever. And I was just killing. I was like, that's a lot of money. I don't want to do it. And then I thought, you know what? I would bill this to a client. If I was going to do this for a client, I would put this in the invoice and just bill them and not even think about it. Why is it that way for me? And so really kind of doing the mind shift of, I'm investing in myself. If it's time that you need to do as an author, I need to invest time. If you spent months and months and months and months and months writing a book, spend some money on getting your cover done right until you're proud and happy about it. Because that's one of my pet peeves, is bad covers. Because as much as I read and as much as I am interested in what other people write, if I'm in a bookstore or online and I'll skip over a bad cover, and it's a shame, because the book itself may be absolutely wonderful. Right, and so just try to make that mind shift of invest. I mean, if you've got it, hold off on your launch because you need to raise some money. I would say to hold off, and because you're only going to have one chance to get that in front of people, and you want to do it right. And so, anyway, that's my advice, is to invest in yourself. Maybe kind of gradually go up, but treat yourself as the client. And that was the big thing for me. And it's funny because for 12 years I've been doing business and stuff, but when I had to make that mind shift of, I've got to treat myself like I would treat a client. So. That is true too, and that's a mind shift, because especially as a solopreneur, if you've been doing a lot of work yourself, it's kind of hard to make that difference, to let go of those reins and say, okay, well, this is where I've got to change something. I listened to a podcast today by Michael Hyatt. Yeah. And did you see it? No, I haven't. Okay, well, it was about how to do less. I forget how it's put. Less. I don't. How to Do Less But Get More. Basically, what it was about was a new book that was out, and I think the name of it was Existentialism. Oh, well, I'll put it in the show notes. But what I'm getting at is if you concentrate on doing the things that you do well and either have somebody else do the other things who can do it better than you, or take them completely off your plate, that maybe you were just doing them because you thought it was the right thing to do,
Right.
that by doing less, you are improving everything that you do. And that is a very, very important, especially people like us who try to do so much by ourselves. That's just such an important thing to keep in mind. I mean, I just brought my daughter in, and to be able to allow her to go do these things that were really bogging me down has just allowed me to really get better at what I do, and I'm super appreciative about it, let me tell you that. Super appreciative about it.
That's awesome.
But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and close the show. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. You gave us a lot of great information. If you are not following Jeff either on Google Plus or Facebook or Twitter, start now, because he always gives great information. And not only that, he has some super great friends that he puts out a lot of their content too. So he's a very good resource to have in your toolbox. If you would like to watch past episodes of The Writing Biz, you can do so on thewritingbiz.com. I also have all kinds of resources and tools and books that my guests have authored. And this will also be podcast on Stitcher Radio and iTunes. Next week's topic is building your website for your writing biz and how to make it work for you. I have not solidified the guest yet, but I'm working on it. And beginning September 3rd, we're going to start an incredibly informative series that I think is going to be a lot of help. And it's going to be on publishing. We're going to talk about traditional publishing and self-publishing, and I have some awesome guests that are going to be involved in that. Jeff, thanks so much for making the writing biz a little more manly tonight. It's the last 2 weeks with guys has been awesome.
Oh, good.
And would you like to tell us where you're headed for, what you have going on, and give us where we can find you?
I'd love it if people would go to the manlypinteresttips.com and sign up, and you'll find out when our live shows are, and getting ready to put some tools on Pinterest, some of the top tools out. Sign up for that list. I would appreciate it.
Okay, all right. I think I already did. If I didn't, I will do that for sure. Okay, well, thanks, everybody, and I appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great one.